Introduction. In a significant address delivered via video link to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, U.S. President Donald Trump articulated a controversial perspective regarding international trade relations, particularly focusing on the relationship between the United States and Canada. His statements suggested that various nations, including Canada, are exploiting the advantages of trade agreements and economic interactions with the U.S. Moreover, he reiterated assertions that the United States does not require imports or support from Canada, sentiments that have profound implications for both countries and their long-standing partnership. The context of Trump's remarks. To fully understand the weight of Trump's comments, it is essential to place them within the broader context of U.S. foreign policy and economic strategy. Since taking office, Trump has promoted an America First agenda that emphasizes protecting American jobs and industries from what he perceives as unfair competition and exploitation by foreign nations. This framework has shaped his administration's approach to trade negotiations, tariffs, and international relations. At the World Economic Forum, a gathering of global leaders, business executives, and influential thinkers, Trump's rhetoric stood out not only for its content, but also for its implications on international diplomacy. His remarks reflected a shift away from traditional diplomatic language and toward a more confrontational stance, suggesting that the U.S. would no longer tolerate what it sees as imbalances in trade relationships. The nature of trade relationships. Trade relationships between nations are inherently complex and multifaceted. The U.S. and Canada have enjoyed a robust trade partnership for decades, characterized by extensive cross-border commerce and mutual economic benefits. The two countries share one of the largest trading relationships in the world, with millions of jobs in both nations relying on this interconnectedness. However, Trump's assertion that Canada and other countries are taking advantage of the U.S. reflects a broader narrative that has gained traction among certain segments of the American population. This perspective frames international trade as a zero-sum game, where one nation's gain is necessarily another's loss. In this view, the U.S. is seen as the victim of unfair practices that disadvantage American workers and industries. The implications of America First. Trump's America First policy has far-reaching implications for U.S.-Canada relations and global trade dynamics. By asserting that the U.S. does not need anything from Canada, Trump challenges the foundational principles of interdependence that have characterized the U.S.-Canada relationship. This rhetoric undermines the established understanding that both countries benefit from cooperation and shared economic interests. Such a stance can create a ripple effect, leading to increased tensions between the two nations. The suggestion that Canada is merely a country that takes advantage of the U.S. diminishes the contributions of Canadian goods, services, and resources to the American economy. It overlooks the fact that Canada is not only a vital trading partner, but also a close ally with shared values and interests. Examining the economic reality. To assess Trump's claims that other nations are exploiting the U.S., it is essential to consider the economic reality of trade relationships. Trade deficits, which Trump often cites as evidence of exploitation, do not inherently indicate that one country is gaining at the expense of another. Rather, they reflect the complexities of global supply chains, consumer preferences, and the benefits of comparative advantage. For instance, Canada exports a range of products to the U.S., including energy resources, agricultural goods, and manufactured items. These exports contribute significantly to the American economy, creating jobs and driving economic growth. By framing these transactions as one-sided, Trump risks overlooking the contributions of Canadian exports to American consumers and businesses. Moreover, the interdependence of the U.S. and Canadian economies is evident in various sectors. The automotive industry, for example, relies heavily on cross-border supply chains, with parts and components manufactured in both countries. Disruption to this interconnected system could have detrimental effects on production, employment, and ultimately, consumer prices. The role of tariffs and trade agreements. Trump's rhetoric has been closely linked to his administration's approach to tariffs and trade agreements. Throughout his presidency, Trump has threatened and implemented tariffs on various goods, positioning them as tools for renegotiating trade terms and protecting American industries. This strategy has raised concerns among economists and policymakers about the potential for trade wars and unintended consequences. For Canada, the threat of tariffs on key exports has necessitated a strategic response. The Canadian government has sought to reassure its citizens and businesses that it will not be intimidated by Trump's aggressive stance. This includes exploring new trade agreements, diversifying markets, and reinforcing its commitment to free trade principles. Additionally, the renegotiation of NAFTA into the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, reflects the complexities of balancing national interests with the need for mutually beneficial trade arrangements. While the new agreement sought to address some of Trump's concerns, it also underscored the importance of maintaining strong ties between Canada and the U.S. Despite the challenges posed by the current administration, Canadian officials continue to advocate for a collaborative approach to trade relations. #The impact on Canadian sovereignty. Trump's statements regarding Canada's role in trade raise important questions about national sovereignty and identity. The notion that Canada is merely a beneficiary of U.S. generosity undermines its status as an independent nation with its own economic interests and priorities. Canadian leaders have long emphasized the importance of protecting their sovereignty while engaging in international trade. The framing of Canada as a nation that takes advantage of the U.S. can have lasting repercussions, fostering resentment and distrust among Canadians. It reinforces a narrative that diminishes the contributions of Canadian products and services to the American market, while ignoring the shared benefits of a robust trade relationship. This dynamic can complicate diplomatic efforts and hinder cooperation on pressing global issues such as climate change, security, and public health. Public perception and media response. Public perception plays a critical role in shaping the discourse surrounding international trade relations. Trump's comments at the World Economic Forum sparked widespread media coverage and commentary, prompting discussions about the implications for U.S.-Canada relations and the future of global trade. In Canada, media outlets and political commentators expressed concern over Trump's remarks, interpreting them as a direct challenge to Canadian sovereignty and an affront to the long-standing partnership between the two nations. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other officials quickly responded, reiterating the importance of maintaining strong ties with the U.S., while emphasizing the value of Canadian contributions to the American economy. Social media also played a significant role in amplifying public reactions to Trump's statements. Canadians took to platforms like Twitter and Facebook to voice their opinions, using hashtags and campaigns to express their pride in Canadian products and their commitment to supporting local industries. The ability of citizens to engage in these conversations highlights the evolving landscape of public discourse and the role of digital platforms in shaping narratives around trade and diplomacy. The broader implications for global trade. Trump's rhetoric and policies regarding trade extend beyond the U.S.-Canada relationship, reflecting broader trends in international trade dynamics. The rise of protectionism and nationalism in various countries has led to a reevaluation of traditional trade agreements and partnerships. As nations grapple with the complexities of globalization, the desire to protect domestic industries has gained traction among political leaders. The implications of these trends are significant, as they can lead to increased tensions between nations and a fragmentation of global trade networks. Countries that prioritize protectionist measures may find themselves isolated from key markets, undermining their economic growth and competitiveness. The interconnectedness of the global economy necessitates a collaborative approach to trade, one that recognizes the mutual benefits of cooperation and shared prosperity. The future of U.S.-Canada relations. Looking ahead, the future of U.S.-Canada relations remains uncertain, as both nations navigate the complexities of global trade dynamics. While Trump's presidency has introduced challenges, it has also prompted a reevaluation of the relationship between the two countries. Canadian officials are likely to continue advocating for a strong and independent Canada, while seeking opportunities for collaboration with the U.S. The importance of maintaining open lines of communication and fostering mutual respect will be critical in shaping the future of the partnership. As both nations confront shared challenges, such as climate change, public health, and security, the need for cooperation will become increasingly apparent. By emphasizing the value of collaboration and the benefits of a strong bilateral relationship, both Canada and the US can work toward a more prosperous future. Conclusion. In conclusion, President Donald Trump's remarks at the World Economic Forum regarding the relationship between the United States and Canada highlight the complexities of international trade dynamics and the challenges posed by protectionist rhetoric. His assertion that Canada is taking advantage of the US and that the US does not need anything from Canada raises important questions about national sovereignty, economic interdependence, and the future of bilateral relations. As both countries navigate the shifting landscape of global trade, it is essential to prioritize open dialogue, mutual respect, and a commitment to collaboration. The lessons learned from Trump's presidency will undoubtedly shape the future of US-Canada relations and the global economy as a whole. By recognizing the value of shared interests and the benefits of cooperative trade, Canada and the US can work together to build a more resilient and prosperous future for their citizens.